most memorable win?
Oh, probably Bathurst in '69, only because up until then, I'd been to Bathurst twice before in a bullet, you know, which was an Isuzu bullet 1600. Not very competitive, not even a competitive in a class, but a mate of mine owned the car and he said, why don't we go to Bathurst? And we did. And it was a bit of fun, but then getting a competitive motor car for the first time and going to Bathurst in the Monaro and winning the race, which actually sort of launched my racing career, I suppose, over the next 30 odd years.
The largest crowd in the history of the race has come to see what promises to be the most thrilling motor race of its kind ever staged, with main interest in the battle for line honours between the new and specially built Ford Falcon GTHOs and the car that won convincingly last year, the Holden Monaro GTS. Ford won in '67, so today's race is something of a decider. With fuel stops expected to play a big part in the final result, they save every ounce by pushing to the start. A maximum field of 63 will take part, so all know those first few laps will be very, very hectic, especially for those to the rear of the grid. Ford Managing Director W.O. Burke talks with pre-race favourites Leo and Pete Gagan. Past winners Fred Gibson and Barry Seaton. Gibson in 1967, Seaton 2 years earlier. They'll be in a Falcon. Last year's victors Barry Mulholland and Bruce McPhee have this year switched to Ford, and McPhee will again drive all but one of the 130 laps. David Mackay is another Ford convert, while on the other hand, Harry Firth has switched to the Holden dealers camp as team manager. Harry has won the race 3 times, so should know every bump, bounce and bend of the notorious circuit to keep his drivers and their vehicles in the running for line honours. Colin Bond has been one of Foxy Firth's star pupils in recent weeks. But now the 1-minute siren has gone and all is ready for a start with 2 Falcons and a Holden on pole position. Don Smith's Datsun is first casualty as it brushes the fence opposite the pits, but considering the size of the field, it's an incident-free start. They swarm through Hardie-Ferodo corner and up Mountain Straight. The Gagan car is pacemaker at XL corner, and their speed up the mountain is nearly as fast as last year's going down. The first 30 cars are bunched and battling for early positions. One wrong move could cause catastrophe. And that's just what happens as they race over the top of the mountain. One car rolls in front of the field, all but blocking the track. Others, unable to slow, cannon into each other. 4 cars are write-offs and 15 others get a buffeting. The leading 10 cars missed the incident completely, so those front grid positions do pay off. And Pete Gagan has a 200-yard lead over the Falcons of David Mackay, Bruce McPhee and Fred Gibson. Then come the Holdens of Digby Cook, Colin Bond and Des West. Bill Brown's Falcon is one of the worst victims. Paul Mander's Mini will be off the track for some time. Alan Kant's Capri is another with low mileage, going cheap. This year, roll bars were permitted again, and there's little doubt they saved serious injury here. Christine Cole takes over from Lynn Keith, and the Fiat is quickly back on the track. Now the field is starting to spread, making life easier for not only the drivers, but the lap scorers too. Gagan is clear leader after 20 miles, and with him now, David Mackay's GTHO. Then the GTSs of Cook and Bond, the McPhee Falcon, and the West Monaro. But the leader is determined to lead the field well behind, and he's lapping the smaller cars. Mackay takes Forest Elbow very carefully. Already he's having trouble with his rear brakes, and those Holdens on his tail are not helping. A pit stop to find the trouble costs Mackay his place with the leaders. Mackay's brake troubles bring the Holdens of Cook, Bond and West to second, third and fourth. Then come Gibson and McPhee. But apart from Gagan's Falcon, the Holdens are having no difficulty matching the Fords, and with no sign of trouble. The leader is still pushing hard, continually lapping the smaller cars, but Digby Cook and Colin Bond are never far behind. After 2.5 hours, Leo Gagan is to take over from Brother Pete, but he's late, and our camera on Forest Elbow shows why. His rear tyre is wrecked from a blowout in the cutting. The pit crew stand by with tyres, unaware of the trouble. Pete had timed his stop 1 lap too late, but despite the flat, his lap time loss is only 30 seconds. This is where every second counts. A minute lost will take an hour to make up. Leo takes over as his crew, with a little help from Big Brother, change both offside wheels.
Hand me a tyre. Have you got a tyre? Here's a tyre. You got a chamois?
Out again after 4 minutes, but now Digby Cook is leader. He's lapping regularly around 2:55, and so far his fastest over the flying eighth is just under 129 miles per hour. Dennis Cribben in trouble at Forest Elbow. It's the only day of the year you can park there, Dennis. Definitely time for a Rothmans. Then a scheduled pit stop for Digby Cook that brings another change of positions. Now the Bond Roberts Holden takes over, and though their lead is only a narrow one, it's considerably improved when Fred Gibson brings in his car, which is now second. This is the car Firth fears most. He won a 500 with Gibson as co-driver and makes no secret of his respect for Seaton's sedan steering. They fit 2 new tyres and take on 12 gallons of fuel. Still, Firth is quietly confident.
It is very, very difficult, especially when the brakes are low and, you know, the tyres are chatting, rubber all over the track, and people are getting edged and they want to try and catch up and they drive their cars a little bit harder. And this is where you've got to sort of try and calm people down a little bit. You can never say you've won here until you have done their 130th lap. We are in front, not by that much actually, but we think that McPhee has to make another stop.
And sure enough, McPhee does pit. Only for 5 gallons, but enough to put him too far back to catch the Bond Holden as it heads for the checkered flag. Colin Bond pilots a careful course around the final lap, taking no chances of spoiling the patient efforts of himself and co-driver Tony Roberts at this stage of the event. Six hours, 32 minutes, 25 seconds their time for the 500 miles, just over 12 minutes better than last year's Holden record for the race. Hardie-Ferodo Managing Director George Hibbert makes first presentation to Holden dealers team captain Firth, then to Bond and Roberts.
Yeah, it was the first chance we had probably going to Bathurst in a competitive motor car. We'd been there a couple of times before, you know, little Isuzu Bullet, and I'd raced my open wheeler there as well, of course. But It was interesting. There were 3 Holdens. Harry had taken the team over not that long ago, and they ran at Sandown, and Spencer Martin and Kevin Bartlett ran the car at Spence down there. Originally, Harry was going to get me and Spencer to drive it, but I was actually doing a rally in New Guinea on the same weekend. So we got Kevin. Unfortunately, the car crashed though on about the 3rd lap, went backwards into the fence and caught fire. There's a few reasons, maybe why, maybe not, but you know, I think probably somehow or other the brake pads got mixed up and they could have had the wrong brake pads in the car or something, and because you know the car should have gone further than 3 laps before it ran out of brakes. But anyway, after that particular race, there was a few modifications made to the cars for Bathurst. We had air scoops put in the front to take some air to the brakes, and some other wheels put on the car which had slots in them to let the air out. And then at Bathurst, of course, we qualified the car, I think, probably about 7th on the grid, and we were running Michelin tyres, which are the ordinary road tyres. All the Falcons and one other Holden ahead of us were on race tyres, and one of our cars, which was the lead car, was supposed to be the lead car, which was the one that Spencer was supposed to drive, but he couldn't because he'd hurt his back in the crash. Had some Firestone race tyres on them, and I said to Harry, can I have a go with those? And he said, oh no, Cock. I said, oh, they've got to be faster. And he said, no, Cock, they won't fit your car. And I went, oh, shut up, Colin, because in those days you had to sort of knock the flares inside the mudguard over, which was sort of not legal, but wasn't quite illegal, but our cars were squeaky clean, I think, and that was the way it was going to be. But as it turned out, the car was good. We ran all day. Billy Brown helped, I think, by on lap 1, took half the field out when he crashed and rolled the Falcon. But it was a slow half the field, so it wasn't so bad. But we still had the Fords, and then Al Turner run the Fords. He brought out some race tyres for them, and that became a bit of a disaster where they blew tyres and crashed and rolled. Except for Moffat's. Moffat's car didn't, but Moffat seemed to have a problem on the first lap, I think. He had a gear change selection problem going up the mountain, and he almost lost a lap before he got going again. And then the race was on between myself and Bruce McPhee towards the end. Bruce was also on Michelin's, but we knew he had to stop for fuel towards the end, and which happened, of course, and we went on and won the race with Tony Roberts. And look, it was, in those days, you couldn't drive the car flat out. They was what we used to call series production motor cars. That was stock standard. The brakes on the Monaro were quite small, and you couldn't you had to drive them to make sure they're going to get to the end. So your gear changes, your braking and all that sort of stuff was quite easy on the car. So you sort of stroked the car along, and I think you just stayed with the mob and did the best you could. And fortunately we were able to do it on the day, and the result was great. We won, and it really put me, I guess, in the Holden dealer team, and for the next 7 years, and it cemented my career with motorsport, which I was able to do for over 30 odd years, and I think that was very good and one of the best races that I can remember.